humble.
Yes.
Very happy afternoon. It's a great afternoon, a blessed afternoon. Yes, we are here at MiDNA Global's Learning Hour, transforming lives globally with genetic brain profiling. Today's guest is very special. Why? Because he's an ancient soul. And it's all about spirituality, the energy, the vibes that connects us. Because trainers are many, mentors are many, coaches are many. But there are rare few gems who lift you, uplift you, enlighten you, who take care of you like a mother, father, the discipline, the love, the nurture, and identifying our nature, our genetics, our meta programs. And they also lead us to empowerment stage effortlessly. That's Ajay Almeida, sir, founder of Ajay Almeida International, India's leading and only boundary coach who has impacted thousands of lives, not just with boundaries, but with also mastery in NLP, an international NLP trainer with a difference. He's a magician. Why? He inspires youth, teens, mothers, fathers, couples. You talk to him on any topic, he can make you feel at ease and peace effortlessly. He is divine light. Let's hear his story. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Sunny. Thank you for that introduction. And I don't know how much of it I deserve it, but I know that everyone here deserves to have a great time, a beautiful time of learning, development, and empowerment.
And I'm 100% sure that you are here to touch so many lives through this YouTube live and small room here. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Sunny.
My first question is, Ajay Almeida was not born great, but how was he nurtured to be this great, to touch lives, to inspire so many every day? What happened? If you can please tell us about your journey.
Absolutely, absolutely. Am I audible, Sunny?
Yes, yes. We are not able to see you as yet.
Just a minute.
Yes, yes.
Just reconnecting my. I think there's a. I'm just checking with my camera.
Yes, you can go ahead, sir. No worries. Ajay sir is a complete professional who has helped many other professionals to grow in life in all areas of life. He's a master, he's a father of two, and he can nurture us all with so many tools and techniques.
Thank you, Sunny. I'm connecting my camera.
Yes, perfectly fine.
At this point of time.
No worries, sir. We understand that internet, technical glitches, and the modern day challenges should keep us completely in a peaceful state, equanimous state. And that's what NLP is all about, living in a beautiful state. Yes. So I'm sure all of you are excited. Please put in the chat box, how much excited are you to learn from Ajay Almeida, sir, on a scale of 1 to 10? I'm sure you are all at 11. Yes, yes, amazing. Good to see the chat box full of Super numbers 10, 11. Thank you, Bartika ma'am. Thank you, Brinda ma'am. Thank you, Divya ma'am. And there's 100 as well. Yes. There is so much of learning for all of us today beyond GBP because today's topic is very close to my heart. After I met Ajay sir, my counseling went to a whole new level. Ajay sir, please go ahead with your answer. We are fine.
Yes, absolutely. So the camera has decided not to switch on for some reason. We will see
Yes.
whenever it comes on. But let's
Yes.
continue.
Yes.
That's
Please
right. So
share with
how did
us
I
your
go
journey.
ahead and
Yes.
become what I've become today? Well, my journey was not so easy as it can always be felt. I had a very difficult journey because I was a very agreeable person, a person who would agree to almost anything and everything. So I would say that I had no muscle. So I didn't know how to exercise my no muscle, no. And that led
Yes.
me to a time where I have been bullied to an extent that I was always there for people and I was always there helping people. But there came a time when I had my own dark night of the soul. We all have those nights when we feel that the day is not going to come. Sometimes we feel that there's no day for that night. I had a similar night when everything was going downhill. All my efforts, none of my efforts were actually bearing fruit. Now I realize that efforts always bear fruit. Some efforts take time to bear fruit. And I had no one to help me out. I was so low. I was almost borderline on depression. And at that point of time, I just went up to my terrace and I looked down and I looked at what's the problem with life? Why is life like this? When you want to do things for others, when you're there for others, why aren't people with you when you need them the most? And I'm sure many of you have asked this question, that when people need me, I'm there, but when I need people, I don't find people around me. How many of you have asked this question? Let me see a raise of hands. Fantastic. That's right. The thing is, when I asked my question, I had no answer, like many of you might have felt the same. And at that point of time, I decided that I couldn't see the light ahead. It was like a dark tunnel. I just couldn't see the light ahead. What I did not know is that I used to have depression. I never knew that. I was not evaluated for it. I had not gone to a doctor for it. But then I realized later on that I was somewhere depressive. And at that point of time, I couldn't see the light. And as I was there on the terrace and I felt all is vain, my friend calls up. Now I realized that if you have a friend calling at that point of time, you might feel that, oh, good relief, someone cares for you. But the answer that I got from my friend was this. So this is your attention gathering technique. And I was shocked. This was the same friend for whom I had given sleepless nights. And this is how I was pursued. But then I took the right message from that. I reframed that and I said, was I going to end my life for all of this? And the day I came down from the staircase, from that day, I kept going down and finding the resources that I had. I went on a spiritual quest after that. I invested 4 years in learning Indian as well as Western philosophy. I took a radical decision to move away from home. And that is where I got a lot of my answers. I isolated myself only to be available to the source. And that's where I got a lot of my learnings. And from that time onwards, because I loved to learn about human nature from philosophy, psychology, and then came NLP, that's when I began on understanding who is Ajay and why is he here. Once I realized my mission was to make nice people good and good people great by helping them to understand something called as the boundaries, which we will discover today.
Yes. And we are so lucky because who doesn't need this gyan? Who doesn't need this wisdom? Everyday daily tips. If you are a water personality, effective and emulative, or a steadiness person, you allow others to violate your boundaries. But what are boundaries? So let us go towards the journey of greatness with healthy boundaries. Ajay sir, please enlighten us. What are boundaries? What boundaries are we talking about? The 4 and the 6, sir. Is it cricket?
Absolutely, absolutely. I would be glad to go ahead with that. And let me help you out with what are boundaries. So before we go ahead and I tell you what are boundaries, how excited are you to learn about boundaries? Give me a rating from 1 to 10.
Very,
Fantastic. I can see
very
10. Super
enthusiastic
excited.
crowd. Yes,
Lovely,
yes.
lovely, lovely. Fantastic, fantastic. Okay. Yes, Sunny, I have been trying to switch on the video, but somehow I'm getting a message cannot start video, failed to start the video cam. So
No
anyway,
worries.
let's just move ahead. Yes. So what are boundaries? Let me give you a simple example. You know, when you go to meet a dignitary, maybe the president, the prime minister, or the queen, or the king, you're given a list of protocols. You're given a list of protocols. You're given, in fact, a document. And in that document, you're supposed to study that document first before you come before that dignitary. And in that document, what is mentioned? All that is mentioned in that document is what is acceptable and what is not acceptable in the presence of the dignitary. So you can't just meet the dignitary just like that. You need to know what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. What is the code of conduct before you meet the dignitary? You have to bow in a particular way. You have to walk in a particular way. You can only give your right hand ahead. So many things, so many things. And it's all in the minute points. Then I started wondering, what about us? Are we anything less than dignitaries? Are we anything less than a king or a queen? And we have positive psychology, which tells you that keep affirming yourself. And I asked the question, how? How practically can I affirm myself? Can I just use affirmations and affirm myself? There has to be another way. And that way is by setting boundaries. Now, boundaries are nothing but a protocol or a rule book, an invisible rule book, which tells the other person what is acceptable and what is not acceptable in my presence. What do I value and what is not in my value system? What can I say yes to and what I feel I should not be saying yes to? Those are boundaries. And can you guess what happens when you set your boundaries? You automatically invoke respect in the other person. And how would it feel to be respected and honored when you speak?
So this is good, but once I say no to Brinda or sir, he may get hurt and he may cut off the relationship also. And I may not get my salary and paycheck.
That's true. That's true. So the question is probably, Sunny, how do I say that no?
Yeah.
That's right. Now, the most important thing in boundaries is that you set that boundary of what is acceptable and not acceptable to you only after you have a bonding relationship with that person. So, as you rightly said, it's about Sir or Brenda and all, the people that are already in a great relationship with. So, the more rapport you develop with them and the more open and vulnerable you are to them, they know what do you stand for and what you don't stand for. And when that relationship goes to that level, automatically your no becomes a respectful stance for yourself. And in fact, the other person at that point of time, they may not understand. At that point of time, they might take it as an offense, might. But as they go back and see, okay, why did Sunny say no to this? Normally he says yes to it, but why did Sunny say no to this particular project? And after the tempers cool a little, probably there will be a call, and that's where you'll get to discuss your case. And there's also a way of saying no.
Yes.
Instead of just going ahead and saying that, no, I will not be doing this, probably another way could be, I really respect this project that has been given to me. And I would like to take some time to think deliberately on it so that I can give my best. So can I take some decision time for it? So here you're not said no, you've taken time, you respected the the relationship. And at the same time, after you evaluate, you can come back to them and say, "So I thank you for giving me that time. And I've evaluated it. And I realized that this doesn't fit in my value system. And even if I go ahead and do it, I may not be doing my best. And I may not be giving justice to that job." And I'm sure, Sunny, when you make a conversation like this, where
Yes.
the other person is respected, you have set the boundary in a very subtle manner,
Yes.
respecting the
But
relationship.
I still have a question for wives and husbands and parents who, sometimes keep giving money also, lose
That's right.
money also. For example, I asked Bhartika ma'am, Huna ma'am, please send 10,000. I'm in need. And I cry and then they give in and I run away. So what about those cases?
That's right. That's right. That is a case that we have come across quite often. Now, in
Yes.
boundary language, we call it a relationship between an enabler and a codependent. Now, what is an enabler and what's a codependent? A codependent is a person who depends on a giver. In other words, a codependent is a taker, is 100% taker. So when you give an example of asking for money and crying for it, that's exactly an example of a taker,
Yeah.
someone who loves to take.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that person is called as a codependent because he's dependent on someone else, not because he cannot, but because he is too lazy to take care of himself. And so what happens is this person keeps on pestering the others. Now, as you know, in Hindi, we have a kahawat, jo ताली एक हाथ से नहीं बजती, दोनों हाथ से बजती.
Yeah. Both the hands are
Absolutely. Both the
responsible.
hands are required to clap. So what's that other hand? The other hand is of an enabler, someone who's a chronic giver, जो हमेशा देते जाता है,
Yeah.
every time giving. Now, what's wrong with it? The giver somehow has a relationship with the taker. And the giver feels that मैं जो भी हूँ, whatever I am because I give. And that is a very limited definition of a human personality. So the enabler tends to give that money. Why? Because they want to maintain the relationship, even if that relationship is not working for anyone. And at any cost. So when they do that, they end up making a person even more abusive. So you must have heard many times cases of people coming to us and saying, you know what, I always knew my spouse was an alcoholic, but I thought marriage ke baad sudhar jayega.
Yeah.
I thought after marriage he will not drink.
Correct.
And then you realize that they became even worse after marriage. And that's because one of the spouse always kept on compromising and rescuing the other. And the other person did not come to know the cost of that rescue. So always in a relationship, there is a cost to be paid. People think that relationships are easy and on autopilot mode. Nothing is autopilot. There has to be an investment. And so in that relationship, when you say no, when you say, I'm sorry, I cannot give you this at this point of time, what you're doing is you're setting a beautiful boundary and you're stopping that other person from further abuse.
Beautiful. So, but what about those who are continuously violating our boundaries? In this profile, we said dominant.
That's
and
right.
He's a controller. And then I is also manipulating, getting work done out of us. Oh God. And sometimes we give in too much.
That's right.
So how
That's
do I
right.
fill my own cup as a parent, as a spouse?
Fantastic question. In fact, the whole system of boundaries is to promote freedom, well-being, and love. Boundaries are not walls. We don't build boundaries to isolate ourselves from others. That's right.
Yeah.
Boundaries are actually breathable. They are put there to protect yourself and the other person. So what about the cases where you know that you're being manipulated, or you know that you're entering into a problem? How do you stop that from happening? The first thing is identify. So as you rightly said, there are people who manipulate. There are people who manipulate. Now, how do you identify people who manipulate? People who manipulate have a very soft language. In fact, they will keep praising you even when you know that that praise is not well deserved. So somewhere in your intuition, you realize that ये जो भी बोल रहे हैं, शायद it is not true. And so these people, they are very sweet toned. And when the moment comes, and they will never reveal anything about themselves, by the way. Manipulative people do not reveal any deeper knowledge of themselves. They keep taking information from you. They keep asking you, okay, so this is your problem. Oh, I see. Okay. And they're very, very nosy. They keep asking you about intimate details, sometimes about what's the relationship between your spouse, or what's happening at home, or what's the salary. Even asking some stranger asking you for salary is a boundary violation, because salary is quite confidential. You actually sign it even when you take your salary. The CTC slip says that it's confidential. So
Yes.
what happens is, in this case, manipulative people are very sweet toned. They are very nosy. They keep asking you for intimate details, and they get into your problems. They are attracted towards what are your problems. So if there's any person all the time being nosy about your personal problems, you have to sound the alarm that this is a manipulator on the way. And as soon as you get that alarm, now you can choose not to disclose your details to that person, and limit your time and energy with this person.
Yeah. And I remember you had told it is like giving away your passwords,
Absolutely.
ATM pin.
Absolutely, it is as simple. If you look at it from that point of view, none of us will publish our ATM pins or our bank credentials. Or now we have UPI, so we won't be putting our UPI pins or any of those things out there. Why? Because you know that somebody can violate them. Then why are
Yes.
we so free with our intimate information? Why are we so free with talking our problems to anyone and everyone? Or anyone who tends to be a little sweet, we tend to go and talk to that person and tell them about a personal problem. And I'm sure many of us here have the experience that after a while, that same information which you gave in confidence is then violated and used against you.
Correct. It has happened with me also. So now, what are your two tips to protect these emotions and feelings and mind? How should we do that?
Very
Top
simple,
two tips.
very simple, Sunny. The first thing is, mostly agreeable people fall into these traps. People who are very agreeable, they fall into this trap. So if you feel that you are very agreeable and you tend to say yes to a lot of things, then this is what you can do. Whenever you come across a stranger, complete stranger, take time to test the behavior of that stranger. It's not that you're testing the personality or the morality of that stranger. You're not doing that. We're putting a distinction. We're only looking at the behavior, and then you're testing the behavior. So take time and give that person a lot of time to reveal themselves to you. What happens is, if there is a respectable person, that person will reveal some details about himself, and you reveal some details about yourself. Let it be mutual. If you go ahead and just reveal everything about yourself within the second day, then even a normal person might become a boundary violator. The temptation is too high. It's just like seeing a lot of money on the road, and the temptation is too high for many people not to put their hands on that money.
Right.
It's as simple as that. So here's the tip. Very simple.
But I'm still, confused because here we have a lot of lovely, cute souls who are sacrificers, who can't see anyone in pain.
That's right.
So any emotional story given to them, they will immediately be in tears and give away everything, even the bank details.
That's true. That's true. Now, the question over here is, when you have done this in the past, has it worked for you?
No, no.
So
We
that
got
should
hurt.
be the first point of realization. When you have done
Yes.
this in the past, has it worked for you? Mostly the answer is no.
Yes.
Mostly the answer is no. It has not worked for me. And it, in fact, has drained me. So the
Yes.
second question is, next time when I come across people who need my help, I'll give them some extra time. So if someone comes to me and asks for something which I know it's going to be difficult for me to do for them, here's what I'll do. First, I'll take time to evaluate. And the first step is a very simple test that I can give all of you all is this. You can test that person by saying, give me some time to think about it. Now, if that person does not give you the time, if that person says, no, no, it's very urgent, I need it right now, you already got your answer. This person is a boundary violator, because he's anyway taking something from you which doesn't belong to him. And if he's forcing you to give it, or she's forcing you to give it, that person is definitely a violator of your boundary. So if they're not giving you time, you have your answer. There can be
Yes.
no energy exchange with this person. If they give you time, then respect the time that you have told them. If you've told them one day, then take exactly a day and then come up with your decision and tell them why it works for you and why it doesn't work for you. And if they don't respect that part, then you got your answer.
Yes.
They are manipulators. They are not aggressive violators, but they are manipulators. But those who say
Amazing.
yes and respect your decision, those are the people with whom you can have a relationship. I always say relationship can only be maintained and it can only flourish between two boundary respecters.
Amazing. So let's make our relationships great and beautiful with healthy boundaries. So, but then sometimes we become, full of disgust and hatred, and we build walls.
That's right.
We close ourselves. No more relationship, no more money giving, or something like that. So, even that is not healthy. So, please throw light on that.
Absolutely. By the way, when we say no more, we are operating not from excellence. Boundaries are built when you operate from excellence. But when you're building a wall, you're operating from scarcity and lack. You're operating from fear. Boundaries are built with love. Walls are built with fear. So when you're building a wall, you're actually operating from fear. It means that there is a part of you which has not been healed.
Yes.
And so when people say no more relationships, no more, sometimes people make blanket statements like this. Oh no, all men are like this, or all women are like that. And no more relationships. I would love to be single. I don't want relationships. And I don't want relationships because. Now, that's not a right reason to be single. Of course, there are good reasons, empowering reasons to be single. When we come across people like these, what we do is we go back and we have a technique called as a bonding technique. We use that technique and make them bond with their own self. The moment when they were born, we take them back to that time and we help them to make a relationship with themselves. And what happens after that is the walls which are within them crumble down because now they experience real, pure love. And that's how we help people to bring down, that's right, bond with themselves. That's how we help people to bring down their walls. I've also realized that no amount of talking to such people will help. You have to go to their unconscious mind and build a rapport between them and themselves and make them realize that the core issue over here is self love. Why we
Yes.
build walls is because we don't love ourselves. Because no man or woman is an island. We always need people.
Yes. So, no more lack, no more fears, no more walls. It's about freedom, abundance, and love.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, sir. Now, these mothers and fathers in the room have teenagers,
That's right.
and sometimes they also violate boundaries. They become
That's right.
controllers. Hey, I'm your mother, you listen to me. And after this question, I have another question. So, the second question is, what to do? I have some duty. Should I sit simply? So these are two extremes. One,
Absolutely.
we as violators. Second, we become too compliant. My
Mhm.
motherliness comes out. I have duty towards my children, and then I violate my own boundaries. So please help us with those two categories of people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, one part about teenagers that we need to understand, since we're talking specifically about teenagers, is that teenagers have this different way of experiencing emotions. Now, all of us over here, we tend to experience one emotion at a time, or max to max, probably two emotions around the same time. But teenagers experience almost 7 to 8 different types of emotions at the same time because of the hormonal changes. And so we must understand that teenagers are going through a difficult time themselves. So the first thing in a teenage boundary is this: one has to empathize with them, one has to understand what they are going through. When you talk to a teenager, make sure that it's not a standing talk. Sit with them and talk. Because when you're standing, that is a very intimidating thing for a teenager. It's very simple. Sit down, breathe, take some time to connect and talk to them. and listen to them. Many times parents, because of their parental roles, they don't listen to the teenager. The teenager, what he's saying and what he's asking may not be the same as what he's speaking. For example, a teenager might say that I have to go for that movie tonight. There's no other way. I have not met my friends for a long time and I have to go. So when you sit with that teenager and you realize the need, find out what's the intention behind it. And once you realize the intention is to chill, you can always give them different options, but this will happen only when you calm down the teenager, when you yourself are calm. It will not happen when you talk from a power position. Teenagers hate power positions. And because of that reason, many times our rapport is broken with the teenagers. To set healthy boundaries with teenagers, you need to come down and be calm and be peaceful. And remember, if you have set boundaries during childhood and even later on with teenagers, they will not disappoint you. You need to show them that you trust them enough that they will not disappoint you. Because it's when you trust them, they will replicate that trust for you. Otherwise, they will not. Many of us talk to our teenagers with mistrust. Somehow we feel that ये तो ऐसा ही है, ये तो कुछ ना कुछ करके ही आएगा, कुछ ना कुछ तोड़ के आएगा, कुछ ना कुछ something he will do and come. Because of that intention, which is at the back of your mind, that vibration is communicated to your teenager, whether you like it or not. Number one, breathe, come down, be peaceful, sit down with your teenager, listen more than you speak, and then show them the choices they have. And I can tell you that they will amaze you. This is a very nice way of setting boundary with a teenager.
I like when you said, you added your own resources, you awakened your resources, and now you came to rapport. Rapport is everything.
That's
be
right.
it sales, be it school teachers and students, or parents and teenagers. So, but what about those mothers and fathers who are now caught up? Oh God, what about me? I have my duty. There is child's exam, and you are taking all the stress on your head as though it is your exam. So, few tips on that, who are
Absolutely.
stuck in the role identity or limited identity.
Absolutely. Now, what happens is one thing we need to realize: we have a lot of social programming that is happening to us all the time, whether we like it or not. We have our social media, we have people talking, we have Facebook, we have Instagram, we have so many things going on. We have our families also talking to us, and we also have the collective unconscious, which is talking to us. The whole world around us, the kind of news that is circulated, the books that we read. And there's one big problem over here, and that is, especially in today's information age, we tend to get a lot of generalized answers, blanket statements.
Yeah.
Like, for example, since I am a parent, I have to take 100% responsibility of my child's growth. Now, you need to realize that when a child becomes a teenager, the child is already exercising his power to reason. So, if you stop the child from reasoning and you reason for the child, then the child will never reason. The child will outsource decision making to you or to someone in the peer group. And because of that reason, no matter how much tension you take, no matter how many sacrifices you do, you are arresting the growth of your child. So how do we get out of this? Quite simple. When you have exams or anything coming up, make them face the consequences. So I'll give a simple example. Sometimes I'm sure you must have come across some of the students who say, Mom, I'm not prepared for this tomorrow. I'm not prepared for this. And I'm not prepared for the exam. And I don't know what to do. And at the same time, you see that in their behavior, they're not even taking any efforts to do that. And then the mom goes and says, you know what? It's okay. You'll do well tomorrow. Just do your best. And that doesn't help. At that point of time, you need to confront the child and show them what I call as the law of reality. Many times our talented children are lost because they don't know this law of reality. And this law of reality simply says that you sow what you reap. As simple as that. You sow what you reap. If you don't do this, if you don't study, and if you're not giving your best, you will not get the best. But as parents, we tend to be overprotective. Nahi, mera beta fail nahi hoga. Meri bachchi fail nahi hogi. My child cannot fail. And I think that is the worst thing we can do to a child. Let them experience the
Yes.
results of their actions. It's
You made
only
it really
that
simple.
pain.
Yes.
Absolutely, Sunny. It's only when they experience that pain, then they'll realize that there are consequences for my actions. If you keep cleaning the mess of your child, the child's life will become a mess.
True. Two C's you gave: choices and consequences. And let us experience. I love the law of reality as well. Thank you so much for these great tips. Now, there are some lovely couples sitting here. So, what are your top three tips so that they build healthy boundaries, they blossom in love, divine, unconditional, magical love?
Absolutely. Thank you for that question, Sunny. And in fact, I can answer this because that is exactly what is between me and my wife, Sahana. So, how do you build boundaries? Sometimes people might think, how can you build boundaries your between a husband and a wife? And I'm sure by now you know that boundaries are breathable, which means they're not walls. So here are some three things that I would say. Number one is, it's not what you want the other person to be. Love is when you allow the other person just to be. Love is when you allow the other person to be, just to be. And that means that I have complete authority and power over my decisions. And in the same way, that same power and authority has been given to my spouse. So if I tell my spouse, don't do this, instead of saying, don't do this, can we sit and discuss on it? Can we have a conversation on it? Don't buy that. Don't invest in that. Better than that, why don't we sit and have a conversation and look at the pros and cons of doing it or not doing it? What I would say to the couples is almost the same thing as I would say to a parent to the teenager. Please sit and talk. Take some time out, sit and talk about what's important to both of you. Tip number one is, please be vocal about what's important for me right now and what's important for you right now. That's number one. Number two is respecting the choices of your spouse and trusting that whatever they choose will be for the ultimate good of this couple. Whatever the other person chooses will be for the ultimate good for the couple. So give them the time and give them the resources to choose from. Promote choice. Promote choice. Don't cut down the choices, but promote choice and give them time. And number three would be, talk to each other with a respectful tone. I know that many of us have spent a lot of time with each other, and sometimes we take each other for granted. And we talk to each other not in a very respectful tone sometimes. Make sure you make it a rule that you talk to each other with utmost respect, so that anyone who comes in your presence, they know that this is a couple that values each other. Love is in the act of valuing each other on a day-to-day basis. It doesn't take a holiday,
Yes. Even on a Sunday.
even on a Sunday, just
I'm
as
going
we
to
have
cook
not
for
taken
my
a
wife. Yes. So now, as leaders, we want our subordinates to finish the task.
That's
And
right.
sometimes we violate boundaries, be it school or corporate house, principal or a CEO. What are your tips for the leaders or the mentors here? They also handle small teams in MiDNA
Absolutely.
Global.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The first thing is having a clear understanding of what I'm responsible for and what I'm not responsible for in my mentorship and in my leadership. I am not responsible for the personal choices that my subordinates make. I'm not responsible for their when they are lazy and when they are not doing the tasks that are allocated to them, which means that some of the things I'm not responsible for, but I am responsible for the work that has to be done. So here's a beautiful thing which even Steve Jobs used to do, and how he set boundaries with his subordinates. This is what he did. First thing was, he communicated the vision and the mission very clearly. Every time he sat with his team, the communication of the outcome was very clear. This is what our outcome is. And he would say that, I don't know how you will do it, but within the ethical ways, if you can do it within 2 hours, please do it. If you can take half a day, please do it. I'm not going to set limits on the amount of time. At the same time, this, we all agree that this needs to be done within 2 days. So how you do it is up to you within ethical bounds. At the same time, I will not tell you exactly how to do it. Number one is, leaders, kindly stop micromanaging. Don't do the work that your subordinates are supposed to be doing. If you do that, you're just like that helicopter parent who keeps on helicoptering around the child and never allows the child to exercise his choice. So when you micromanage, you're doing the same thing with your subordinates, and you're not giving them the power to tap into their autonomy and their choice. And so, because of that reason, they will take you for granted, and they will always expect you to do their work. And that's how organizations go downhill. So, please make sure that the communication is clear before any decisions are taken. Gather your people around, sit, have a nice ambience, speak, allow them to speak, come to an agreement, communicate the agenda, and make each one responsible for their part, and tell them the consequences as well. If this is not done, then this is what we get. So the law of reality
Beautiful.
holds true here as well.
Yes. One simple mantra I'm sure everybody would have loved, and this covered whole of genetic brain profiling as well. So they will now sit and talk over a coffee, whether it's a teenager or a spouse or a subordinate. So great, let's meet for a coffee.
Absolutely.
Great. I'm sure
Absolutely.
all of us are excited. But yes, if they want to contact you for one-to-one coaching or boundary programs, so if you can share your details in the chat, and
Absolutely.
then we can open the forum for super aha reflections and lessons and takeaways. Who's going first?
Can I?
Yes, please.
Yes, please.
Yeah, this was a very wonderful session, Ajay sir. I really learned a lot, and it was a revelation, I think. And the best part, I think everything was great. Actually, the points that you have given, everything was great. But then when you spoke about relationships, I think. Yeah, when you were mentioning that every day there is no holiday, there is no Sunday, so there is no relationship that is really absolute in nature. You have to maintain it on a daily basis. I think that is that is what I keep telling myself too. So it has been a great learning. Setting boundaries, and boundaries are breathable, is a wonderful thing. I think it's a wonderful message, and I have to sit down and reflect upon it. It's not fully sunk in yet, but yeah, thank you so much for your valuable inputs. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you
We
very
can
much.
feel the happiness, Brinda ma'am, and we want you to have healthy boundaries. Don't share your passwords. Yes, Lakshmi ma'am.
Yeah, good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon, Sunny sir, and everyone in the group. And Ajay sir, it's a wonderful session and a beautiful insight, and so much of thought-provoking ideas which you have given. And talking about trust, which you spoke about trust and respect and communication. I would like to add something to it. Is commitment is also, will that be also fitting into it along with these
Absolutely.
three?
Absolutely, ma'am. Now, when it comes to commitment, commitment is always something that is not one-sided. We have to first
Correct.
decide, discuss, and then commit. What happens is, ma'am, when we are very agreeable, we automatically commit to something without thinking over it. And that's
Correct.
our commitment becomes strangling for us. After a while, we realize, why did I make that commitment? Like, for example, you might be saying that, okay, I out of my excitement and out of me being a very good person, I give an amount of time to my client, and the client feels that I can go on and on, and that 1 hour session, that 1 hour coaching session goes for 2 to 3 hours, because the client feels that you have given a commitment. Now, what is the problem over here? The problem is that before that session even happened, the commitment has to be mutual. Both have to sit, both have to have a document which says that this is the amount of time we will be spending every day. So the commitment comes from both, and it comes when there is a conversation, C to C. Conversation leads to commitment, and then we respect that commitment and we hold that commitment.
Correct. Exactly.
Very
Sir, I would like to add
point, because these days life coaches have back-to-back meetings, and one meeting is too stretched and I had to cancel 2 meetings.
That's
correct.
right.
Beautiful.
Sir, I would like to add something to this also. Being a counselor, when we do family counseling and marriage counseling, and where we talk about relationships and all that, like in our Indian marriages, where we have the 4 mandaps, the 4 pillars for the mandap, the marriage mandap, which has 4 pillars. So those 4 pillars we related to, like as you said, trust, then respect, communication, and commitment. That is what I just wanted to relate it here. Sir.
Absolutely. Beautifully put, ma'am. Beautifully. And commitment always has to be mutual.
Correct. Correct. Exactly. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Lakshmi ma'am.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Sunny, sir.
Thank you. Yes, we have so many leaders. Priya ma'am.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Ajay, for the wonderful session. Indeed, we need to set up right boundaries for a healthy and happy relationship in every aspect. But one thing that was coming to my mind, that what if someone has already been too flexible and has not been able to set up the right boundary? How can that person be helped? I mean, supposing after 15 years of marriage, the wife or the husband realizes that they've been too lenient, they've been too flexible, and for that they've always been taken for granted. So how do they set up the boundary then?
Wonderful.
Coaching question.
Beautiful. And in fact, that is exactly what we do in our programs. The whole point of our programs is to help people who have already been violated for a long time, or those people who have been violating other people's boundaries, to realize that none of that actually helps them. So what do we do in case of people who have been too agreeable or who have been allowing people to violate their boundaries? Number one is first and foremost, they need to understand exactly what type of violation is happening. So we give them clarity as to what is the violation actually going on. The second aspect would be, after you realize with crystal clarity what you have lost in that relationship by doing that, by being an agreeable person, once that gravity comes in, then out of the love for the other person, you will be motivated to set boundaries, not only to promote your own mental peace, but also to build this family ahead. So what happens after that? After that, there has to be a nice, good sit down between the husband and the wife. And it may not be easy in the beginning. For example, let's just take a very general example. Let's say that in that particular relationship, the husband takes the wife for granted. And the wife, although she's a professional, also feels that, I don't know, I have to work everywhere and I get no power in my house also. So what do we do at that point of time? Once the wife realizes that boundaries are necessary, it's her duty also to take time and educate the man about it. Now, what will happen in the beginning? When you exercise what we call as a baby no, we tell our clients to first exercise a baby no, not a big no, a small no. She can start exercising her no muscle by starting to take more time before she commits to anything that the husband is saying. A very small thing. Maybe it's about cleaning a particular desk and she feels that he can clean it himself. Why do I need to do that? And you can start saying that, you know what, it's been a while and the desk needs to be cleaned. And I know that you've been busy. At the same time, I would appreciate if you do it yourself. Now, at the beginning, the husband might feel a little offended as to why are you becoming so arrogant about it? But that's when you have to allow the person to feel the emotion and be there. Boundary setting is not easy. In the beginning, there will be some animosity that will develop between you and the other person who has taken you for granted. Yeah. After a while, when you stand and when you stand on your stance and when you don't move away, that's when the other person will realize, okay, she's pretty serious. If you wait and if you allow them to just go on, and if you give in, then they will never take you for granted. You will have to give them time to wait and process that. And there will
So
be
a person needs to be very persistent with the effort without
absolutely
taking a U-turn.
And I'll tell you, Priya ma'am, why people are not persistent in the effort, because they have the fear of losing that relationship.
Yeah.
And that fear completely goes away when you fall in love with yourself, because you know that you're abundant. And that's what we do in the bonding activity. So half of what we do in our boundaries is conscious awareness, and half of what we do is completely programming the unconscious mind, because ultimately it's your unconscious mind who needs the programming. And so what happens is, after you're persistent, then the other person realizes, okay, she's a little serious, let's see. And if this person values the relationship, then they will take some efforts. Then there'll be a common ground where the two of you can actually sit and have a conversation. When you have a conversation, set your expectations and do it with a sign, with love. Do it with love. And when you do that, automatically your baby nose will be respected. And then gradually your big nose will also be respected. That's how we do it.
Amazing.
Really. Thank you.
I just loved it because it is a parenting tip also. That son was not raised by a boundary respecting father and mother. They did not teach him, oh, it is son, so don't worry. We will clean the desk for you. We will do everything for you.
Right.
So we spoil all the sons like this.
Beautiful point. Because when
I learned it from Shahna ma'am today.
Because when we are adults, we actually repeat what we have been given as children. So when we don't learn our lessons in childhood, we repeat them in our adulthood. So a messed up room, which the parent keeps on cleaning, will later on be a messed up life for that child. The child will later on, that messed up room is nothing but an imagery of the future messed up life, which the child will always want the other person to clean up. This child, when he grows into an individual, when he grows into a husband or a brother or a sister or whatever, or a CEO, will always expect somebody else to clean his or her mess. And that's where relationships falter.
And all the fights and violence, or even the highest mistakes in the society, are proof of boundary violation. So I think it's high time we wake up and we raise empowered leaders. Now I invite Ratnaswamy sir to share his magical joy and blessings.
Yeah, thank you, Sunny, and thank you, Ajay. Really, we loved your session very much. In fact, the last point that you discussed was the icing in the cake, where if you allow your children not to clean up their mess, one day their life will be messed, and then no one will be there to clean up, and that would be the most frustrating. We all know when they are kids, it is very easy to teach them simple things that can take care of them. But somewhere I believe the abundance in life, economically, materialistically, have come. And I repeat it and regularly in my sessions. I call them ATG, the affordability of the abundance that has come, the technology and the global connectivity that we have. They are boon and the bane. If we are not balancing them well, then we are definitely messing up our life with people around. Everybody also get affected because of that. And with the understanding of genetic brain profiling, I may have to connect with this boundary coaching, because boundary coaching is nothing but high adaptiveness, where you don't know how to say no, and people put their nose into you, and you don't even know that the other's nose is there already inside your nose because you did not tell the no to that person. So high adaptiveness means you don't know how to set boundaries for your life. Yes, there are some ways, but unless otherwise you know that you are being encroached upon by someone else, then it is you cannot find out. So I personally understand this high adaptiveness is part of the boundary coaching that you are talking about. People need to know. Fortunately, if you are a left brainer with high adaptiveness, because of your self smart being well, because you think a lot, because your converging is stronger, you are able to figure out, maybe with few accidents and pains and suffering. You figure out, oh God, this is what I have not been doing, and people are exploiting me, and I'm being the victim of it. So he realizes a bit faster if he is an introvert or a left brainer or with higher converging. Whereas if he is a right brainer with more diverging and all, he doesn't even know that he's being, suffering, being exploited and bulldozed, used as a mat. And you still say, oh God, what do I do? I think he is loving me so much, I can't say no. And then probably let him, it's all right for me, I'll go through it. So this is something they accept it as sacrifice and then go through. There is one more dimension which you said I'm able to connect with our genetic brain profiling data is something called the ratio between the neocortex and the limbic brain. We call it N by L ratio. When this N by L ratio is less than 1, we call it as moderate, and otherwise we call it as fast, which means the fear of losing, as you very rightly said, they have low self-esteem, which means they estimate themselves to be very inferior, and I can't do it. If I do it, the person will go away. I will be probably having more difficult times. So let us not raise and probably let others abuse and then in the process suffer a lot. So I call it as FOD, fear of death or fear of losing something very important, which is equivalent to dying and not able to survive. So the fear of survival, which becomes the fear of death, and probably that's what we see when it is highly moderated. The very interesting thing is, these are the people, as you very rightly said, take a lot of time to come out of it because they are not willing to believe what you are saying, because they have been always sitting inside a well and they don't know how much they have digged their own well or their own ground they have dug it. So it takes a lot of time. First, as you very rightly did, we have to teach them how to learn themselves, how to respect themselves, how to come out from that what you can call it as a very negative mindset in which it is they have to come out of it, and then ultimately they operate from that. So I think these are the most difficult clients and customers for those who are doing life coaching. Even in our counseling, we repeatedly say that you have the ability, but they are refusing to believe because they haven't seen, they have not come out of the well, they have not come out of the cave, so they are not seeing any light, they live in their own darkness. So that is more self-created, and it is so such a negative one. The more they remain there, they are digging their own wells, thinking that they are doing something to come out of it, but on the contrary, they are actually digging even deeper wells as well. So we understand from the genetic brain profiling counseling that higher adaptiveness people, if they are left brainers, you just tell them that this is what you need to do something about. You write it down on a paper and give it to the person. Let us see what he does. Very, very rightly you said baby knows, you have to tell, and over a period of time you should tell them a little more emphatically. That can be something that can be very easily communicated as well. The problem is with the right brainers, because they feel so much for others, so it takes more time for them to understand. But I think they are still coachable if the adaptiveness is higher. But if the processors are moderate, where they don't believe, they don't respect themselves, they feel that they are inferior, lot of motivation and lot of, as you very rightly said, their subconscious mind needs to be worked a lot. Maybe something like an NLP or a past life regression kind of tools can be a great opportunity to them. But all said and done, I think it will definitely take more time, and just bring them few steps from their 100-meter deep well itself will be a great task. But once they come out of it, and then probably maintaining and managing them is easier. But I'm sure it is definitely you need a great coach to do that with a lot of patience and tools and methods that are multiple in nature, so that they could find out that one of the tool is working for the individual. So that is how I believe this boundary coaching is understood. But I think your session has definitely given us a great insight on how to understand the challenges in boundary coaching. you yourself looks like, from your statements, looks like a right brainer with high adaptiveness, because a left brainer knows what is depression, but the right brainer does not know what is depression. So it's very difficult for them, unless otherwise they come across somebody who says maybe you need some help, and they start doing it. That's something luck you have to call, because you meet someone, probably they help you out coming out of it. Probably you are fortunate enough that you somewhere it stuck you and you have come out of it. It is very motivating to see from a patient you have become a coach, from a sufferer you have become an offerer. That's a great transformation. We are very proud of having you today in our amidst our family members. I'm sure everyone is indirectly connected with psychology and the understanding of brain and the functioning and the challenges and the SWOT analysis and the MiDNA genetic brain indicators. I think we have so much, we have made it so much easy to understand these problems. Now getting a tool is the opportunity. I'm sure Sunny and coaches like you can definitely able to help these budding therapists or budding solution providers a great information to apply in their with their customers and clients, and that can make this whole world a better place than whatever it is as of now. So I learned a lot of inputs from your session. I owe a gratitude to you for sparing your afternoon. I once again thank on the behalf of the family for giving such a great um, I would say experience sharing, and it's a really no words to describe the impact that it would make in our lives in the days to come. Thank you, Ajay, for everything that you have done to us today.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for giving this opportunity. And I'm so glad to share the boundary knowledge here, because ultimately, when we all set healthy boundaries, the mission over here is to be a boundary builder. Because when we set healthy boundaries, we create people who are respectful to each other. And when we are respected, respect is love in action, according to me. And when we are respected and loved, that's where we can sit and solve anything that life is giving us and make a great life ahead.